San Francisco on business, he decided to try out one of those great San Francisco seafood restaurants. So he got to the seafood restaurant, and the place was packed, and the maitre d' told him it would be about a 30-minute wait. At first he said okay, but then quickly became impatient. He kept yelling at the maitre d', "Do you have a seat for me yet? Do you have a place for me yet?" He started pushing the people out of the way. Eventually the maitre d' walked up to the fellow and said, "Sir, yes, we have a seat for you." And the man said to the maitre d', "Well, let me ask you a question. Do you serve crabs here?" And the maitre d' said, "Yes, sir, have a seat." You see, in life, every move you make, every word you speak, every gesture you use gives a little insight of who you are to other people. And that turns out to be the key point of today's gospel reading, coming out of the 16th chapter of Matthew, verses 13 to 20. Now, in today's gospel reading, Jesus has one very important concern. He's got a lot of concerns, but one very important concern. He wants to make sure that his church will grow. And Jesus realizes in his public ministry that if he's being perceived favorably, his church will grow. If he's not being perceived favorably, his church probably will not grow. Therefore, right in the middle of his public ministry, Jesus stops and has to make an assessment. How am I coming across? How am I being perceived? For this is the gospel of perception. And to perceive, perception means to look inside of someone. So Jesus asks this very important question. It's a question that maybe a whole lot of people don't want to ask, or maybe too afraid to ask. Verse 13, 16th chapter of Matthew. Let's take a look. Jesus went into the region of Caesarea Philippi. Now, Caesarea Philippi, on the path of the public ministry of Jesus Christ, from the very first moment he started preaching all the way to his crucifixion, Caesarea Philippi is right there in the middle of his public ministry. So at this middle point of his public ministry, Jesus stops in Caesarea Philippi, and he asked his disciples, because they're following with Jesus, "Who do people say the Son of Man is? Who do people say that I am?" You see, Jesus realized that's a very important question, who do people say that I am? Because Jesus could tolerate change now, but not failure later. I got to find out I'm coming across. Tell me, my disciples, what are you hearing out there? What are the people saying about me? Let me know. Tell me the truth. What are you hearing? Do I need to change my style, my demeanor, or should I keep doing what I've been doing? Now, Jesus had to wipe his brow in perhaps excitement, because the answer he received, this very important question, is a good answer. Let's take a look at verse 14, again, the 16th chapter of Matthew. Now they, that's third person plural, so it's a reference to the disciples. They replied, "Hey, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." What they're saying to Jesus Christ is this: Jesus, the people aren't sure who you are. But because of the example you set, the lifestyle that you lead, they know this much: you belong to a group of admirable men. Some say you're John the Baptist, the precursor for Christ. Some people think you're Elijah, the great Old Testament prophet. Some people say you're Jeremiah, another great Old Testament prophet, or one of the prophets. Jesus, they don't know exactly who you are, but they know this much: the way you're carrying yourself, what you say, how you display yourself. They realize this much: you belong to a group of good men. But Jesus Christ at that point is not totally satisfied, and for a lot of good reasons. Jesus Christ wants to build this church upon Peter, who will eventually become the rock of the church. Jesus is saying to himself, I'm glad everyone thinks I'm an honorable man, but I got to find out, what does Peter think? Because I got big plans for Peter. Who does Peter think I am? What's his interpretation of me? So Jesus asked Peter, let's take a look at verse 15. And he said to him, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter, which is Peter the rock, said in reply, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Peter understood exactly who Jesus Christ. Peter's understanding of Christ would equal his undertaking. And Peter's understanding of Christ was based upon not only what he heard about Jesus, but what he saw Jesus doing, how Jesus lived. So the challenge point of today's gospel reading is this. It all boils down to what? How did this gospel affect me in my life today, 2020? What Jesus Christ is saying is, if you were to walk up to someone, a neighbor of yours, a co-worker, and said to that person, who do people say that I am? Not me, but you, first person. Walk up to someone you know, and hopefully walk up to someone you know tells the truth. You say that a person, we've known each other for a while. You've seen how I speak, what I laugh at, how I react, what I do. Who do people say that I am? And if the response is, well, a lot of people say you're kind, it's because you're kind. If the response is, a lot of people say you're compassionate, it's because you're compassionate. If the response is, a lot of people say you're a whiner, it's because you're a whiner. If the response is, a lot of people say you're a complainer, every time they see you complain about this, complain about that, you never stop complaining, it's because you're a complainer. So today's gospel reading leaves everyone here with a challenge. The challenge is, would you have the courage to do what Jesus did? We walked up to his disciples, unarmed, right there in the middle of his public ministry, and he says, fellas, what are people saying about me out there? Who do people say that I am? Do you have the courage to do that? Now, you might say to yourself, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to ask Mom. That's the wrong person to ask, because why? Moms are compassionate, so sweet. Mom's not going to tell you the truth. You know, I love American history. And one of the nice little by stories of American history, I find this unique. That's why, if you're going to ask Mom, who do people say you are? Well, you're just going to get a sweet answer. Mom's not going to hurt your feelings. In the annals of American history, I always found this really interesting. When John Wilkes Booth, on April the 18th, 1865, when John Wilkes Booth was entering the Ford Theater in order to assassinate President Lincoln, at that very bracket of time, John's mother, who was a Washington, D.C. socialite, they had a lot of money, the Wilkes family, Booth family. And his mother was playing cards with other ladies in the socialite circle. And guess what she was doing? As her son is entering the theater to shoot President Lincoln, what do you think his mother's doing as she's playing cards? She's bragging about her son. She's telling everyone what a great son that Johnny happens to be. And he's doing some naughty things. So don't ask your mom, because you're probably going to get a really sweet answer. But if you had the courage to walk up to someone you know likes to tell the truth. Not everyone would tell the truth. But you know, people tell the truth. They speak their mind. If you walked up to someone who speaks their mind, naturally they have to know you. They had to see you in action. They had to hear you, see what you talk about, what your jokes are, what you laugh about. All those things tell people about you. And if you walked up to someone tomorrow, you should do this. Someone you know knows you and they tell the truth. And you said to that person, let me ask you a question. Who do people say that I am? How am I coming across? How am I being perceived here in this world, on the face of this earth, in our little neighborhood? Would the answer you hear excite you, disappoint you, make you want to change, or just say to yourself, I'm getting it done, I'm doing a good job? Jesus had some great courage when he said to his disciples, hey, who do people say I am? And Jesus had to be very excited when they said, Jesus, they're not sure. Some say you're John the Baptist, others Elijah, some Jeremiah or one of the prophets. All they know is this, Jesus. Because of the way you live and what you say, they know you're a good man. Hopefully that would be true for you. If you ask that question to someone else, they would be able to conclude you're a good man, you're a good woman.